Welcome to Healthspan Digest podcast. In this episode, I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Alexis Sams, the food allergy doc. So, if you or anybody you know has food allergies, you're going to want to stick around and listen to this full episode. As always, with all of the Healthspan Digest episodes, we finish with one action item you can do today to extend your health span. And again, this is going to be key for those of you that have food allergies or sensitivities. So check it out. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Cheers. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. Today, we are going to talk about food allergies. And so this is what we think about, or what I think about when I hear the word gluten in my household. But we can think about gluten, soy, nuts, tomatoes, and a whole other list of foods that unfortunately for some people are hard to tolerate. And so, with the help of Dr. Alexis Sams, the food allergy doc, we're going to do a deep dive into how we can really learn a little bit more about food allergies and how we can take action on them. My name is Aaron Shaw. I'm from HealthSpan Physio Coaching. I provide private coaching services or custom coaching services for people who are interested in expanding their health span. Health span is that length of time within our lifespan that we are healthy, active, and vibrant. And in today's world, we're living longer, so our longevity is improving, but our health span is not really kept up. And so we focus on this podcast about strength training, nutrition, stress management, sleep, personal accountability, kind of some mindset perspectives. And whenever possible, I bring guests on who can help all of us, because I would say that a big part of health span for me is, or when I think of health span, I think of quality of life and I think of food. And so if somebody has an allergy to food, there's a relation to quality of life, and we need to do something about that. And so that is where Dr. Alexis Sams is going to help us on that today. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Alexis. She is a holistic physical therapist and food allergy specialist and founder of Renitrition Health and Wellness, located in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. She has a focus on enhancing the lives of those dealing with food allergies and intolerances, and she uses her signature food clues to uncover often overlooked factors in traditional medical treatments. She draws on her extensive training in physical therapy, functional medicine, herbalism, and mindset coaching to help countless individuals worldwide who haven't found relief through conventional methods like exercise, medications, injections, or surgery. Dr. Alexis is a self proclaimed foodie and author of the book that I am holding in my hand right now, Food Clues: Decoding the Hidden Messages Behind Your Food's Likes and Dislikes. Dr. Alexis, thank you for coming onto the show.
Thank you so much for having me. That was such a great introduction. I'm really happy to be here, and
Well,
thank you very much.
this is as we were saying before going live, that after we first connected, the first thing I did is get this book, and it has been on our dining room table because with permission, my wife said I can disclose that she has food allergies, and this is a riddle of sorts, trying to figure out things that we can eat and eat consistently, and some days are better than others. So food allergies, I think, is a hot topic right now. So thank you for joining us. You are a foodie, so the first question I have to ask is, what is your favorite food?
Oh gosh. Uh,
Oh, it wasn't going to be like, I thought you were like, oh, this is the thing. This is your off the tongue.
no, like I am an equal opportunity eater. I do not discriminate. Um, I, uh, I simply don't have. I don't think I really have a favorite. I love food, and I just love
Okay.
eating.
I guess maybe that's a foodie. That's a
That
foodie thing,
that's
right?
a
So it's
foodie thing.
food. All food is good. Some maybe just better than others. What would you say is the most exotic food you've ever had, or do you ever have like international fare?
That is one of my dreams. I would love to explore and travel the world and experience the world through food and learn about different cultures through their food customs, their food preparation. So I will be the first to admit I haven't had the opportunity to travel too much. But I will say I went to Costa Rica last year, and just going through their market and just seeing just like the fresh fruits and vegetables and the meats and just seeing them there and watching them be prepared was just it was, I don't even have a word to
And the
describe it.
smells and the smells of a market are always unique too,
They
right? Especially if they're cooking things and
they are, but they're just always welcoming for me. Like, some people may take certain smells and be like, "Ew, that's gross," and I'm just like, "That's just the smell of preparation, and it's gonna be beautiful." So yeah, but if especially like fresher foods and things that I can't get locally, those are the things that like I gravitate towards. So I had some things in Costa Rica. I don't even remember what the names of them were, but they were wonderful fruits.
yeah, I think that's the fun part of exploring different uh, if you can go somewhere, but also even just uh, bigger cities will have, a variety of restaurants, and sometimes just going in and trying some, I guess, as a, in the American diet would say non-traditional food, not the typical plate of, the American diet. And so, yeah, it's always a taste bud exploration. Well, let's talk a little bit about um, how your interest in food allergies began. What got you drawn to that?
Um, it was I stumbled into it. It is definitely an experience and a journey that has definitely been divinely appointed. I did I have to admit, I didn't wake up one morning and just say, like, I'm going to be a food allergy crusader. It happened to me basically out of my pandemic story, which I feel like everybody kind of these days has. Um, I originally started out owning an outpatient, like orthopedic clinic that was focused on performing artist because I grew up as a dancer. And then the pandemic came, and so those types of activities were non essential. And my clients knew that I had a functional medicine background. So during the pandemic, clients shifted from asking about improving flexibility and things like that to, how do I prevent, from getting sick? How do I boost my immune system? So that's where the first shift happened. After that, um, and things from the pandemic started to quiet down, then it turned into, oh, well, can you help me with my blood pressure or monitor, managing my thyroid or just chronic illnesses and chronic symptoms? So then I kind of stayed in the holistic health and functional medicine pathway. And then one client who, if any of you follow me on social media, you'll hear me talk about Rhonda all the time. Rhonda, one day towards the end of her treatment program, just offered up. She was like, you know what? I went to a barbecue the other day, or, something. I'm paraphrasing at this point because it was a few years ago. And she was like, and I had watermelon and I didn't have a problem anymore. And I've been allergic to watermelon since I can remember. And the same thing, she said she had an avocado allergy and she said, but there was guacamole there and it was fine. And, I was like, really? And she said, yeah. And so she
Hmm.
was loving life and just, and to this day, she's still fine with it. And after that, I kind of kept just getting hints and sprinkles of more and more clients starting to mention that that was an added bonus, an added benefit in their treatment or towards the end of their treatment program with me. So I started looking and learning more about the prevalence of food allergies and intolerances. And in the US alone, like I was personally taken back about the 15 to 20 million or so people in the country who experience some type of food allergy or intolerance. And so at that point it just felt like it made sense because just hearing the sense of people talk about how limited their lives are, not just by what they eat, but or what they can't eat, but more what they can't do and experience. It Those stories are what hit my heart more, and those stories are what I feel more compelled to help with. I have like moms of teens who are nervous about their kids going to college because of peanut exposures. I had young ladies talk about, wanting to date and being nervous about going on a date or kissing somebody because of, you know, feeling nervous or anxious about becoming sick off of things like that. And so it just really just came onto me and just really motivated me that if I have a system that works, I need to be applying it to this population of people that I feel like at this point is kind of getting overlooked in terms of solutions that actually help and work to help open that door of opportunity to helping people just live a more free and fearless life.
Hmm. So, do you find that I'm just thinking of uh, once somebody has to cut out a certain food because of sensitivity or an allergy, that there must be some sort of cascade eventually that for some people it could be a nutrition concern. Like if they're keep cutting out things that they can't eat, do you find that some people could have deficiencies in certain vitamins or minerals or something if they you know, keep cutting back on what they can actually consume?
Mhm. Oh, 100%. And I'll be the first to admit that when I first started working with clients specifically in helping with food allergies and intolerances, that's kind of what I had tunnel vision for, is helping restoring the nutritional deficiencies in the body. And I quickly learned to, I've always put, the client's goals and their feelings first. I've always done that. But in this experience, I uniquely learned to really listen to what they're telling me. And what they're telling me is like, yes, they get the nutrition part, but they want to live their lives. They don't want the isolation of that comes with the limitation of food allergies. Like they want to be able to send their kid to school and not have to send them with a separate cupcake because somebody else's mom is bringing cupcakes for the birthday party, but they can't have the cupcake, and they have to sit at a separate table. That's isolating, for a
Mhm.
6, 7-year old. And how does that trigger social interactions and social development? That's where the the transformation that most of my clients, and from more and more of what I hear in the community. So yes, I definitely, in my functional medicine brain and holistic health coach brain, I see the deficiencies, and my program and framework focuses on that. We work on the inside, but it's that outside interaction that I definitely make sure that I'm addressing and encouraging and hearing from my clients, because more and more, like, that's what they want. Like, whether it's for the care, the caregiver wanting it for the person that they're taking care of or for themselves. They just want to be happy with their life. And I'm 100% on board with that.
Yeah, I could. It's again to speak to people that I know that have food allergies. There's, um, it's a challenge, and I think that nobody wants to be that person who, has to ask, so what's in this salad again, or
Mm-hmm.
what's in that, and because it looks great and everybody else is eating it, but maybe I can and maybe I can't get it. Like so, I could the psychosocial aspect to it is, and I haven't really thought that much even about a young person who's 7, 8, 9 years old, that that key time when you're learning social interactions, and if you have to have a child isolate away because of an allergy, you really, that's pretty intense. Yeah,
It is.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And it just, it
It's kind of
hits me.
heartbreaking, right?
Yeah, it is. It really is. And I wasn't expecting, I wasn't expecting that. And it, like I said, it just motivates me more to help more people, because I want that for as many people as possible.
Yeah. So can you explain? This is maybe a simple question, but like, what exactly is a food allergy? Like, what happens when somebody eats something and their body, two people eat the same thing, one person digests it, everything is fine, and somebody else, there, is it an immune response, is it a inflammatory response, or something that they just can't digest in the right way or
So,
fully?
yeah, so before I answer that question, I'm going to give a small disclaimer that my answer may not be in line with like the traditional classical definition of an allergy. I take a little bit more of a broader approach, in the sense that whether you call it an allergy or intolerance or a sensitivity, what it boils down to is a rejection. It's a rejection for protection. Those are the two words that I talk a lot about when I'm working with clients. So that reaction when somebody eats said food, that reaction, one, is their body saying no in a physical way. No, don't put this in me. I can't handle it. And it's doing that in a sense that, or for the reason that our body's number one priority is to protect us, keep us safe, keep us happy, keep us alive. So I'm going to do everything that I can to not let you put this in me. And I'm either going to tell you, I'm going to show you, I'm going to do literally everything I can. And at the foundation, that's what a food reaction or an allergy is. And like I said, for me, and when I'm working with clients, the nuances of the words, I find more and more that those nuances don't exactly exist the way that they are traditionally kind of presented.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you talk about food clues, which I think is it's not only the title of your book, but it's super clever. I think it's interesting to think that uh, it sounds like there's a degree of reflection that people have to have with your assistance and really reflect, like, what? Wait a minute, like, what's happening here? Obviously, your as you just said, your body perhaps is saying no, we're not going to consume this, or here's a warning sign, perhaps. But can you give us some examples of what clues you may see, whether are fairly common for you to see, like, and what your detective self picks up upon picks up on with that?
Sure, totally. So again, um, if somebody asks me, which essentially is the question, like, what is a food clue? It's my personal like philosophy and my framework for how I help people overcome their food intolerance or their food reactions. Essentially, the basis of food clues is that every food you avoid is a clue to your health. You're avoiding it for a reason. And my job is finding that reason. So the essence of food clues is using the nutritional characteristics of the food and knowing where that's supposed to go in the body, how it's supposed to interact in the body. And that rejection for the protection is letting me know that the location where the nutrient is supposed to go or the purpose of the nutrient isn't working for some reason. So essentially, food clues, the food that you avoid, gives me the clue as to where and what the problem is. And then essentially, I help people overcome that. So then the food is no longer a threat. And you asked for examples. So first example is the first food clue that I ever came across that was in, that was taught to me in my functional medicine training, and that food clue is cilantro. So, and it's something that everybody kind of relates to because most of us, if you're listening, most of us have heard that, people either love or hate cilantro. There's very few people in the middle.
Mhm.
People are like, oh my gosh, I love cilantro. I put it on everything. That's me. I love cilantro. Um, and then there are people who hate it. And like specifically, you might hear a lot of people say that it tastes like soap. It's very soapy tasting. That soapy tasting is the clue. That clue and that rejection actually links to a specific part of how the liver functions. And that soapy taste is a clue that that particular liver function is kind of down and out for some reason. My job is finding the reason, fixing that, and then giving liver support to restore that proper function. And then when those two things happen, which is what I call kind of like the root food cause and then the root food effect, like cause and effect, when I
Mhm.
find those two and fix those two, then the food clue, the reaction, dies down. And it doesn't really get any simpler than that. It's not super complex. But that's in essence of food clues. Another common one is mushrooms. Most people know that mushrooms are part of like the fungi family. So food reactions or food rejections, or I don't like the smell, I don't like looking at it, even that little, avoidance. That's still rejection for protection. The sight of it, the smell of it, of a food. Um, that the clue within that is that there may be difficulty with how the body handles fungals different things of the fungi family. So then I'm looking deeper into what's going on in that department, where can there be maybe an elevated presence of fungi, and so your body is saying, don't give me any more of that. I can't handle it. So that's the essence of food clues.
Hmm. So when you through treatment, do you find that the person who may be a little averse to cilantro or mushrooms, can they overcome that? So I mean, I guess I can normally think maybe it's being too absolute that if somebody is sensitive or an allergy, it's yes or no. Either you're a person that can eat this thing, or nope, absolutely not, and that's the end of the story. But it sounds like there's actually more of a treatment or like an approach that you can do to soften that resistance
Yeah,
or eliminate it.
yeah. So essentially, that root food cause, finding what. So going back to the cilantro and the liver example, finding what threw that liver function off in the first place, and there are common things on that list, fixing that, and then guiding the liver back and restoring its normal function. causes the body to no longer have to reject to protect. And therefore, that can turn around and show itself as liking cilantro or not being so intolerant of it anymore. Um, but that said, that final reintroduction or final return to certain foods and things like that, I 100% leave that up to the client. So it's never like I never put myself in the place to say you have to get back to eating this. You have to, do those things. If that's their goal, then I work with them to accomplish that goal. But um, some people just, like I said, they want that freedom. It's this particularly you mentioned gluten in the in your introduction, particularly with gluten. Most of my clients just want to be able to go somewhere and not feel like freak out if something happens to get on their plate that was gluten related. And then they eat off of that plate, and I honor and I respect that. I'm not here to get anybody to like eat or love bread or, all the things. I do want them to be able to go to a holiday dinner and if a little piece of mac and cheese gets on a plate, they don't, have to worry about going home sick. Like that is what I present as the goal. Um, so to answer your question, yes, there can
Yeah.
be a resolution of those food reactions. And I can say yes for two reasons. One, there is evidence that supports it. I find it more and more every day as I'm refining my framework and looking for, you know, um, scientific evidence that supports why I'm thinking what I'm thinking and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So evidence supports it. And two, my clients tell the story. Like Rhonda was allergic to cantaloupe her whole life, and now we're in the summer right now, and I just saw her a couple weeks ago, and she's loving her cantaloupe and watermelon. So it is possible.
That's great. So, can you tell a little bit about um, when somebody? Well, I mean, two questions here. I mean, one is I'm curious what an assessment looks like. Again, broad strokes here. Like if somebody came in and said, "Hey, I can't gluten or fungus or cantaloupe or watermelon or all these things that just would be heartbreaking, frankly, not to be able to consume." But how would you roughly kind of how would you start a process with them, and then what does a treatment approach, and I'm not sure if even treatment approach is right. I'm an occupational therapist by training. You're a physical therapist by by training. So we, treatment plans and treatment approaches and stuff. So is this? I'm curious, both kind of like the plan, broad stroke.
Yeah. So how does that go? So um, regardless of whether I basically offer two ways to work with clients, either in a group program setting or some clients just prefer that one-on-one individualized approach. So aside from that, the assessment and the plan is the same. The assessment, I just call it the Food Clues Wellness Profile, and it does involve a pretty extensive and I'm you can hear like how my voice is going because it actually doesn't take that long to complete, but it is pretty extensive. It's a lot of questions, but they're just, they click through. Um, After that assessment, after that form is completed, I take all of that information and create a Food Clues Wellness Profile, which I feel like clients love because it tells you where all of your allergies and reactions are coming from, how it's affecting your body, what systems, what organs, what functions, what chemicals, like all the things, what's down and out, essentially why you're having the reactions that you're having. I identify that to bring clarity and comfort to my clients so that they have answers that sometimes they haven't been able to get with other practitioners or other programs. I also use it to make sure that I'm covering all my bases. And if there's any weird outliers or things out of left field, I can kind of see that coming and let them know when they get to this stage in my program or something like that. We might have to tweak something a little bit in order to make sure that they get the best outcome. So the first step is a pretty intense system and symptom based assessment. We go through that. They get all of their answers sent to them. And then the Food Clues framework is actually 6 stages that go in the natural order of how the body likes to seek, destroy, heal, repair. So, and that has come over the years of working with clients. Order is by far the number one, I think, factor that many of my clients who choose to move forward with the program, that's what they were missing. Most of the people who I work with, they've been to multiple practitioners, they've had lots of tests, they've tried lots of things, and when I talk to them, I hear, I hear little glimpses and I hear the little steps, and I tell them, I'm like, all those things are in my framework. It sounds like you're just missing order. Order is the number one thing that's usually off. So
Interesting.
my framework pulls that order together. It starts with making sure that everything in the body is clean as far as how the body detoxifies itself. Then it goes into immune support and inflammatory control. The next step is going after germs, toxins, like really getting in there and eliminating the enemy. And then the back end of the framework goes through healing, repairing, restoring function, because sometimes the reaction um, that people are having with foods is related to an organ or system being down and out and not functioning optimally. So sometimes the turnaround and the healing that they're looking for, they haven't gotten it in the past because it was focused on eliminating germs or a liver cleanse or cleaning out. And that's not what the problem was that was driving the rejection for protection. Sometimes they needed healing and restoration. So my framework covers both. So that's
Got it.
essentially in a nutshell how I work with assessment and then how I go through treatment.
Do you find, is there a correlation? And again, this is the occupational therapist, strength coach question approach, I guess, is there, a physical activity component? Is there ever a correlation to what people are doing or can do physically, either because they're, in an inflammatory state versus coming out of one? And is that a modality that you ever use of that?
Yes, and I can like the strongest example of that is lymphatic work. There are some lymphatic exercises and some movement principles that I will incorporate with somebody's program, utilizing the lymphatic system, ensuring that fluid flow is optimized. That actually comes from their wellness profile, that system and symptom assessment. Usually, there I'll get information that says that they need a little bit of extra support in that area. Otherwise, healing and repairing and restoration, I have found, again, our body's highest priority is keeping us alive and healthy and happy. So, in a lot of my clients, there isn't as much physical activity on the front end because the body just needs time to heal. The body needs time to address the issue, address the problems, get them out of the way, and then just get some good healing and restoration, get things functioning a little bit better. Then, towards the end, if clients have specific activity goals or if something in their profile has let me know that they really need, an exercise component, I add that in there. That's usually how it presents itself. But and then for most clients, I'll say their bodies just need to focus on the cleansing, eliminating, and then the healing and restoring first.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can think of, again, with my musculoskeletal background, that I'm very well aware of tissue inflammation and how activities have to be modified quite a bit for that. And
Mm-hmm.
so the idea of a allergy or a sensitivity is like a systemic, which sounds daunting. Like how, if everything is inflamed or hypersensitive, how um, it's a delicate balance on what can be done. Just like if there's an inflamed muscle or a tendon that's inflamed, it's like, well, you got to be pretty deliberate and careful not to make it worse. And so if the whole system is inflamed, um, you can't exercise your way out of it. You got to be very
Mm-hmm.
thoughtful about how you progress with that.
I
So
will. Oh, go ahead.
no, please.
um, I will say that in that same context, um, when in that same context of using exercise or movement or when it's appropriate or when it's not, I will say that in most cases, if somebody can focus on the cleansing and the healing first, it usually goes faster and it gets them out the door earlier or it gets them out to the door faster and progressed faster into being able to safely exercise or tolerate a form or activity. by addressing that higher priority of healing and cleansing and stuff first. When sometimes if I have a client who wants to work out and exercise, sometimes we do run into little hiccups along the way. Things like you said, building up tissue inflammation, building up lactic acid that the body may have some difficulty clearing. So sometimes I do have conversations where, yes, exercise can be healthy, but everything, has to be taken into context. And sometimes there's a higher priority that the body needs to address. So, yeah, sometimes it's a delicate conversation that we have to have. But most clients and most people who end up working with me, they understand the importance of when it's appropriate and when it's not.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that with, as we know in the rehab world, and really with anything we're dealing with people, there's the science, which is always evolving and we're always learning more, but we can't treat or take care of people on some sort of spreadsheet. Everybody's like, the art has to be brought into a real people with real life and very unique situations, and day to day is different, moment to moment is different, meal to meal could be different.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a little bit of an art dance, I think, that goes along with navigating this as well. So what comes to mind is the idea of, as you're working with somebody, is there a moment it, you are done, discharged, and is there a maintenance program that goes on, or is this more like, excuse me, or is this more like you break your arm, the bone is healed, you're done, you go away, no more exercises? Is it how much of it is a ongoing program?
It's a little bit of both. So there is a specific stopping point within the framework that most clients get achieve the goal that they're seeking out to achieve, whether it's food allergies or intolerances or some of my other clients. So there is a definitive end. At that end, clients are discharged, like you said, essentially with a maintenance program to continue keeping things functioning and making sure that all the work that they put in isn't in vain. So they definitely get a maintenance program when they are released. Two things usually happen after that. One, sometimes clients have other goals that we move forward on in achieving. And I can tell you the top two ones are weight loss and medication weaning. So after we've gone through the framework, they've gotten their food intolerances improved to the point that they are comfortable with, that works for them. Their personal food intolerance or food allergy goal is achieved. Some of them want to work on weight loss. And so I have, regimens and programs for that. The other one, like I said, they've achieved their goals, and can you help me get off this blood pressure medication now? Or they're already starting to show rejection for protection signs from their medications because they're operating in a healthier fashion, and it's not always needed as much or in the same way. So working with their care team, their medical doctors and things, is another big second step that a lot of people will continue working with me on. So thyroid medication, blood pressure, insulin, like all of those things, those are the heavy hitters. Your antidepressants, that's another very common one that I've worked with a lot of clients to reduce afterwards. So that can be kind of the pathway afterwards. And then after that, I love my clients and they love me. So it's not unheard of to get a phone call a year from now or something, and hey, can you help me with this? Or I went overseas and I came back and I feel like crap. Can you help me?
Mm-hmm.
So I love staying connected with my clients.
Of
That's
course.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's a two-way street, right?
Hmm.
As a clinician, that bond, you develop a strong bond and this, genuine care for people. So you always want to be looped in, or this goes to curiosity of, I wonder what they're doing, or how somebody's, discharged somebody months ago, and you wonder, like, are they doing what they, are they really back at it, living life? Um, so what type of duration is typical for somebody who's coming in with a sensitivity or an allergy? Like, what can somebody expect if they start on a program? Because I'm sure, like all inconvenient things with the human body, it's not an immediate fix. It takes time, it takes effort.
Hmm.
Do these programs take weeks or months or years, or what's the framework with that, or what's the ballpark with that?
So I'll say it exactly, but
Depends.
no, it sometimes it depends. But I will say this. the average over the years has been 6 to 7 months to get 80 to 100% resolution. And that 80 to 100% has come from anonymous client surveys. Like after they've been done, I send that out, and that is what has been reported. Um, and with that 80 to 100%, they are happy and pleased with that outcome. It has granted them that more freedom, that less fear and anxiety that they were looking for. So that is the time frame that has been, I guess, at this point, like tried, tested, and true.
Mhm. Great.
And I'm open for things to being better, but for that's what it is for right now.
Yeah, well, this is the inconvenient part that even when we know what's going on with the human body, sometimes we also know the timeline, and the timeline can be inconvenient. But physiology takes time, and we don't have to like it. As I tell my clients, I know the rules of physiology. I don't make the rules, so don't blame me. But this is how long tissue
Oh,
takes to
right.
heal, and how long our body takes to adapt. But I think it does respond well when literally and figuratively feed it what it needs, what's appropriate for it. It'll respond accordingly.
Oh, 100%.
Yep.
There's a poster in my office of a phrase that I've said for years: the body never hesitates to heal when you give it the right solution. So
Brilliant.
there is a quick response to healing, but sometimes the steps involved for that total healing to come about sometimes takes time. And I think also sometimes a delicate conversation to have with clients is really embracing that concept that the body is all connected. So more than likely, not just your food reaction, but you know, your intense menstrual cramps and heavy bleeding, or your low vitamin D and low iron, or your chronic joint pain, or your chronic fatigue. Like all of those things are pointing to the same underlying issues. And that said, more than likely, you know, it's more than likely that you've probably been experiencing these issues for a little bit longer than you might have um, originally thought. So in that time frame, the longevity of how your body's been trying to keep you happy and healthy in the face of certain things. Yes, like you said, that sometimes it takes a little time, but I work really, really hard to make it not as long as it has to be because
Of
we
course.
all want things done quickly. Like I even want, I want faster results.
Oh, we all want
So
it now
we all want it
or yesterday.
now.
Yes, but I think we also know that it's nice just to have. I mean, I love the idea of like an organized framework, which I think is, and we know from the rehab world and probably the world in general that things are, even with the right pieces, if they're not just sort of lined up, it can be confusing, and it would really stink if you're in a sense doing you have the right pieces to a solution, but if in the wrong order, and the analogy would be like trying to put together furniture or something, and if you're trying to put the nuts and bolts in the wrong place, and it's like, oh, you got all the pieces and parts, but they're not just put in the right order,
Hmm.
that it can be discouraging, and maybe have people feel like there's nothing I can do. I've tried all the things, and really, if it's more just like structuring, maybe timelining, like this is kind of what to expect, and then I could see how having a couple of wins along the way to realize, oh, something is changing. Like these,
Hmm.
like that maybe it's not perfect now or cured now, but whoa, this is. I feel like you have the sense of being on a journey to where you want to go. Like that seems empowering.
Yeah, you're bringing up a really good point. Lot, I do have a good number of clients who do talk about the progress and the changes like along the way. It's just not as easy to predict. It's not as easy to, identify when those changes come. But it is wonderful to hear them. I just had a client the other day just who couldn't keep anything down. And I think she was maybe just after the first stage was done. So she was like 4 weeks in, and she said, I'm up to eating 3 meals a day. And she was like, they're not huge meals, but I can eat three and the food stays down and my stomach doesn't hurt. And then she came in maybe like about 2 weeks ago, and she said, I ate banana bread. And I was like, okay. Like,
Wow.
and she was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I can't either, like it's great. And I will say the biggest thing, like we were talking about time and making things faster, the single biggest factor that has cut down treatment time for clients is order. The work over the years of the framework, me working that framework and making sure that I have the best order. That has dropped what when I started this path and started this work, people were more like 18 months before their turnaround. And the more and more I got, the better order. It's just faster and faster and faster and faster. And it's been a wonderful journey seeing that time cut down and seeing clients get better and have better symptom turnarounds along the way.
Well, for sure. Then if this is, we're talking 6 or 8 months to, or even to feel some sort of changes within the first couple of months. I assume most of these people have been dealing with this for years
Years.
and years or
Yeah.
decades. That never fast enough. But on the scheme of things, even a few months is pretty quick to have something positive, some sort of recognition that your body's responding. I think that's still it's a respectable time frame with the way the body works.
Yes, I would 100% agree.
So, Dr. Alexis, what we do on this program is I try to um, have us provide the HealthSpan Digest listeners with one thing that they can do today to extend their health span, to have a more healthy and robust life. And if you had, if any of our listeners have a food allergy or a sensitivity, can you give them a tip or an idea? Or was there any one thing that they could do to help with that, to help resolve that? I know there's like 40 things that come to mind, but this is the challenge. The challenge of HealthSpan Digest is all this broad, massive information and say like, but for today,
But
because
for
somebody
today,
right now, for today, somebody's walking their dog right now, our voices in their ears, or they're driving and like, yeah, but today, like, what can I do today?
okay, I'm gonna negotiate with you. Can I do 1.75 things?
I'll give you less than two things.
Okay, less than two things. Okay. So the first thing that you can do today is believe that food reactions can be reduced. And I say that because I see it and I just my heart just goes out to people who have been told over the years that there's nothing that can be done. Like I literally like hurt for them because I work with people and I see people every day to tell me that that is not true. So thing number one is believe that it's possible. Thing number two is find your dominant food clue. And I do have on my website, I have an online quiz for that. You can take the first step today by going in and plugging in some of your dominant food allergies and resistances, and it'll pop out the dominant food clue, the bigger driver that is likely lingering behind your food reactions. And just that little glimpse of knowing what that clue is, um, you'll get like a little bit of information about what that clue means and where it can point to in terms of how the body might need some um, help and support. I would say that that's thing number 1.75 is find your dominant food clue, and I can help with that.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's nice to have a direct action that could be empowering for someone to maybe put a name or a clue that makes that may tie in a bunch of symptoms and discomforts that are annoying and frustrating and demoralizing, to say like, oh, maybe this is a thing, and if we can almost label it and call it, there's a process that we can take care of that
hmm I will
and
say,
believe it.
oh, yeah, I will say most food reactions and food intolerances funnel down to just a few categories of common dysfunctions. And that's what the quiz does. It narrows down the common dysfunction and gives you just a little insight on that. So that's your one thing that you could do today.
It's a 1.75.
1.75.
1.75 things you can do today. Dr. Alexis Sams, I will have all of your contact information, including this link to the quiz and the book that my wife and I have been thumbing through, I'll have all this information on the show notes, and I am grateful for you sharing your time with the Healthspan Digest community. Thank you for your expertise
No,
and your time.
thank you so much for having me. I love what you're doing and I love your mission to improve health span. So thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk again. All right, bye bye. We'll see you.
Bye bye.